Picky,
Let
picky,
there be
picky.
light.
There you go. Well, yay, I'm excited, y'all. Here we are.
Yes, we are.
Not just for food, but for the last spiritual narrative, wading into the living waters and the revelations found in the Christian gospel of John chapter 4. I have to admit it, after even just writing this one, I felt like I was getting raisin fingers from being in the water for so long. But then I thought about the richness of this story and like Jacob's well and how it represents the ancient traditions. The Samaritan woman and Jesus in this long, tender, truthful conversation, and all of the other facets contained within this passage. It's made it, this deep dive, to me, worth it. This entire chapter of John is a concentrated focus on connection and honesty with ourselves, with one another, and with the living waters of God. It's a story about what becomes possible when truth and compassion meet in the same place. Before we move forward into the conclusion, I want us to look back at where we've been this past month. In week 1, we encountered the God of the living waters in the midst of thirst and weariness. The kind of thirst that isn't satisfied with a drink of physical water, but more satisfied with presence. In week 2, we waded deeper into the waters of truth and grace. It's a truth that isn't weaponized or categorized or judgmental or politicized, but it's a truth that is invitational and freeing. We also realize that what we've heard about another person's story may just be pure conjecture. Another facet we looked into is that healing comes from willingness to meet truth with compassion and vulnerability. And last week, week 3, we learned that the Spirit of God cannot be contained, neither by tradition, even long-standing or ancient ones, and certainly not by certainty, and definitely not by countless worn-out lines that create divisions of us and them. We also looked at how the living water can flow from within us outward into the world. And that whenever we are seeking the truth, God is already there, seeking us. So finally, in today's last installment, we're invited to witness the transformative power of new understanding that becomes possible in the presence of grace and truth. The shift that happens from seeing and being seen in a genuine encounter. Our story today begins in John 4:27, for those of you who are looking. We're at the end of the conversation between the Samaritan woman and Jesus. It's the part after he reveals the heart of the matter, that the time is here, right now, to connect authentically with God as spirit and as being. That what counts is living authentically. Jesus' revelation continues when he says that God cannot be confined by mountains or temples or human limitations, that nothing stands between us and the living water except those jars we humans construct in our attempt to constrict and contain the movement of spirit. We pick up the story just after these revelations. Right after Jesus openly names himself as the I Am, the disciples return. And again, we're reading from the Message Bible adaptation. Just then the disciples came back. They're supposed to be bringing lunch. They were shocked. They couldn't believe Jesus was talking to that kind of woman. Their faces said everything, though they dared not speak. The woman leaves her water jar and returns to town, telling everyone, "Come see a man who knew all the things I did, who knows me inside and out. Do you think this could be the Messiah?" The people went out to see for themselves. Many of the Samaritans from the village commit themselves because of the woman's witness. "He knew all about me. He knows me inside and out." They beg Jesus to stay, and he stays with them 2 full days. More entrust themselves to him when they hear him. And then they say to the woman, "We believe now not just because of what you told us, but also because we've heard it for ourselves." One of the most striking parts of this passage could go overlooked. Is that the woman leaves her jar behind, a jar that was necessary for the water in this desert land. The abandoned jar seems like a minor detail, but it's very poignant. The jar's a rich symbol for the shift that's taken place within her. Like the cocoon that a caterpillar sheds once it's transformed into a butterfly, this discarded jar signifies the outdated beliefs that once contained her. As a Samaritan woman is transformed by grace and presence, the old constraints that hold her back fall away. I figure it's quite likely we all have jars like hers. Worn out patterns, beliefs, stories, and behaviors that once helped us survive. That's why we adopted them. But they no longer serve us now as we thirst for transformation. Another observation about the Samaritan woman is that she doesn't go home preaching some sort of doctrine to those who are in her village. She doesn't defend herself for speaking to this Jewish rabbi or try to convince anyone about anything that has transpired. She simply speaks from the place within herself where truth and grace have flowed together. She points not to a system or a structure, but to an experience, saying, "He saw me. He knew me. He didn't turn away. He spoke truth." Returning home, she has laid down the vessel she carried to the well and has herself become a vessel of living water. But not only has she become a vessel, the Samaritan woman becomes a voice through which the living water can flow. She is, in fact, the first apostle named in the book of John, this Samaritan woman. And yet, here's another subtle but profound element to the story. The Samaritan woman isn't the only one who's transformed in the story. Jesus, too, is changed. The story begins with Jesus needing a drink of water. Hot and weary, probably the same as the Samaritan woman, but he's been journeying through a region that Jews usually avoided. His own disciples can't fathom why would he choose to cross this boundary. Why would he choose to speak to this woman? Why would he choose to challenge these Samaritans' beliefs? But by the end of the story, the Samaritans are inviting him to come stay with them, begging, the author writes. And he does. Think about it. For 2 days, Jesus eats with them, he stays with them, he sleeps under their roofs, he teaches in their community, he receives their hospitality, and I figure likely friendship. I imagine them texting them each other their number and saying, have your people call my people. The boundary that was supposed to separate this Judean Jew from the Samaritan Hebrews ends up transforming not only the woman and her village, it transformed Jesus's own ministry. He learns from them. He listens to them. He opens his own heart wider to them as he sees them from the inside out. The living water isn't something that Jesus only offers. It is something, too, he participates in when he folds into this community. That's yet another radical part of this story. Not even Jesus remains unchanged when grace and truth flow together. What has began as a single encounter becomes this widening circle, widening so that it reshapes everyone involved. As if to emphasize the transformative nature of the living waters that's available to all who thirst, the writer of John follows our story with a similar one. This time, it's a Roman soldier, a high-ranking Roman military official who has historically been viewed as a non-Jew, either Samaritan or Judean. He and his entire household are also transformed by their encounter with truth and grace, for which Jesus is the vessel. Living water doesn't just heal us, it changes us. It shifts our direction. It opens new paths. It reveals new possibilities and invites us to places we never thought we'd go, or maybe even never wanted to go. And living water just doesn't stay put. As Jesus says in the chapter before our story, the Spirit of God blows where it will. The living water flows where it chooses. It's science. Water seeks the lowest level and fills it up. It spills, it ripples. It refuses to be contained by whatever jars we've constructed. And in one more final plot twist, I keep returning to this. The Samaritans tell the woman, "We believe now, not just because of what you said, but because we also have heard it for ourselves. That's how transformation from living water works. It flows from one life to another, from inner experience to outward expression into invitation, from vessel to voice, from individual awakening to communal renewal. Now realize that most of us do not have dramatic mountaintop encounters. And even if we did, I doubt that in 2,000 years, people will be reading our stories about it. Like the Samaritan woman, we typically meet the holy in small, subtle ways. At times we didn't plan or foresee, in places we didn't expect. Maybe when someone else names a truth we've avoided or offers a grace we didn't expect, or perhaps from insights within ourselves we didn't anticipate. The Samaritan woman's transformation reminds us that spiritual change often begins in the ordinary places of our lives. Maybe by a well, if you can find one. More than likely at a kitchen sink or the front porch, in a difficult conversation, or in a solitary moment of quiet honesty with ourselves. So as we conclude our 4-week swim into the depths, I wonder how you too might be changed, transformed by living water. Where have you felt yourself seen inside and out in a way that didn't condemn you, but encouraged you and freed you? It gave you permission for something. What water jars, old burdens, old narratives, old habits, current habits, old identities might be ready for you to lay down? What can you leave behind that keeps you small? Where might the living water be trying to flow next? Within you? Through us? And into places we didn't anticipate, or maybe places we've resisted. How do you allow yourself to be moved by living water into new insights, new experiences, and new connections? And finally, what might it mean in this moment, in this season of your life, wherever you find yourself, to become a vessel that also gives voice to the flow of grace and truth? The question isn't whether the living water is flowing or not. That's going to happen. Water's going to flow where it chooses. But it's the question of whether or not we are willing to relax our grip, set down our jars, and step into the stream that's already moving us toward a new life. So I would leave you with this blessing. May we release the things that keep us contained. May we allow the living water to rise from within us. May the stories we carry become reflections of grace. And may we too become voices of uncontained truth and transformation. And so it is. Amen.